Hello, Justine D'Andrea here with Bible Journaling Ministries creative team. Today we're using the Psalms 104, 15 through 14 kit that is available in the Momentum subscription if you're subscribed to that, or you can purchase it at BibleJournalingMinistries.com. And today we're going to be doing some mixed media, so you will need a paper plate, some wet glue. I'm using a stabilo pencil. You can get that on Amazon. A paintbrush. I'm using modeling paste. I'm going to be using one stencil, but I'm showing you two here. Just pick a favorite stencil. Paint, some off-white kind of cream color paint. A umber or like a really dark brown. A gray, a light gray. I'm using a light blue, black, and white. I'm also going to be using some, baby wipes. You definitely want baby wipes. And then I'm going to be ripping some paper. So I'm using cardstock. You don't have to use cardstock. You could just print off some printables from the internet, but just different types of background papers. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. For today's project, I am going to be using my Interleave Bible, and I want a lot of space to work with, and I am going to be covering my pages in the back with Teflon. You can use a wax paper, you can use any kind of like I know Tracy recommends there's this placemat you could get at Dollar Tree, so you can use them. And then I'm using the different papers that I've collected. You can use any type of background that you want. In my mixed media piece, I want a little bit of pattern or pictures showing in the background. So I'm going to take a few pictures from this pattern paper here, or this kind of reminds me of Faith Decks, but I'm going to take, and I'm ripping everything. You don't want to cut anything, oops, when you're using, oh, you need gel medium. I just remembered. I don't think I said that in the beginning. So, yeah, grab some gel medium. So when you're using gel medium, you want to rip the edges because it helps it to adhere and it looks cooler. But it helps it kind of blend better with the background of the paper. So I'm ripping everything. So you're going to want to, I guess you could probably glue it too. I don't see why not. I'm trying to think. I know a lot of times people use the gel medium in mixed media, and basically it acts kind of like a glue, but it creates like a matte finish. Um, so I don't know. I mean, I guess it's up to you which one you wanted to do. But again, I'm just ripping different papers, and um, a lot of times people use just regular printed paper, like regular copy paper, not cardstock, because the cardstock is a little thicker. For me, it doesn't matter that much, so I'm okay with using it. We're doing Psalm 104, 14 through 15. I'm just going to read that real quick as I'm applying some gel medium with a paintbrush. You cause the grass to grow for the livestock and the plants for man to cultivate. that he may bring forth food from the earth, and wine to gladden the heart of man, oil to make his face shine, and bread to strengthen man's heart. So again, I'm just gonna use some gel medium with, or you can use glue. And I'm using a paintbrush. The reason why I switched paintbrushes was because that bristle was a little too soft. You want more of a hard bristle to put the gel medium on. Um, Maybe because mine dried up maybe a little bit. You also can use your finger. Some people use their finger, and you'll see throughout this process I will be using my fingers because I think it's just fun. Kind of reminds me of finger painting. So there is no rhyme or reason to what I'm doing. You're just gonna have some fun and place your papers all around. And you want to overlap them. You'll see I'm going to overlap them. And you want to make different sizes and just have fun with it. You don't want to think. This is the perfect time for you. We read the verse, and now this is the perfect time to just meditate and talk with God and just say, hey, you know, what would you like me to hear from this verse today, Lord? What do you need to say to me that I need to hear today as I'm doing my creative um, journaling? And just don't think about it. Just let it go. A lot of people get caught up on this and they think, and I know people who used to do that, say, oh yeah, it's so free to be able just to put it anywhere and not think about it. So you're not allowed to think about it. Just fill your page up with different types of the papers. Do you trust me? I hope so. And then we're going to be doing a little bit of painting, and we're going to be using our modeling paste. But now, and the other key thing is when you're working with mixed media, it's important to remember to let the layers dry in between. So I'll be doing a lot of heat setting, heat drying with my heat gun, and sometimes that's um, it's a good thing to have, whether you have a hair dryer or a heat gun or something like that, because then it kind of speeds up the time and you can just keep on going with your project. So while I'm doing this, I'm gonna let you guys listen to a little bit of music. I'll be back. So as you see, I actually put some paper on there that has pictures, and my whole thing is I want some of those pictures to show through. Hopefully, by the time I'm done with the page, um, even if it's just a little hint, so that you're looking at the page and you're just kind of like, wait, I see something. What is that? That type of thing. So my whole goal is not to cover them completely. Um, so I'm liking that. It looks good. I've covered basically the whole page. I've put them different ways. I'm making sure that the edges of the paper are down. We don't want them lifted up for this particular project. And then I'm going to go ahead and dry it up a little. You want to make sure that this is completely dry. And when you're putting on the gel medium, you don't want a thick layer because it'll take a long time for it to dry. So you want a thin layer. Or if you're using glue, same thing. You just want to make sure that you're completely drying each layer that you're working on. The other thing, one of the reasons why I like to use the gel medium, because it gives a little bit of a texture. It's not so smooth. So if you're using glue, you're just gluing the underside of the paper. But the gel medium, as you saw, I will go in and I will go around and make sure that the edges are flat, and it kind of gives it a little bit more, are laying flat, and it gives it a little bit more texture. The whole thing to me, when we're doing mixed media, is texture and color and just all that fun stuff. And not only do I like to dry the front of the page, but I also like to flip it over and make sure that the back is drying up too. Just making sure it's completely dry. You can also set it aside if you don't want to use a heat gun or a heat tool. You can just set it aside and let it dry completely. It'll just take a little bit longer for you to complete your project. So it's looking good. I'm going to cover this first in white paint. And I'm using my finger. What you want to do is just cover the whole thing, and you kind of want to start with the light color. So you can take a baby wipe and then wipe off areas. It's better to go lighter to darker, because then it's just easier to get rid of the light than the dark. So I'm doing just a base coat of white paint all over the whole thing. Mixed media is all about layering. There are so many layers in mixed media, and I think that's what makes it fun. And it's kind of messy. I think I like it because you don't have to be perfect. It's just your expression of your time doing your art project and being in the Word. All right, so I'm putting, um, I've put on my white layer just to cover everything up. Remember, my thinking is I want those pictures to peek out, so I'm trying to remember that as I'm going through. Now I'm going to take the other white, like an off-white color, kind of like a creamy color, and I'm doing the bottom of the page, because what I'm doing is I'm creating the ground, and then I'm creating uh, like the sky in the background. So it's going to be like a picture, using the barn. So I'm creating the base here, and I'm going pretty heavy with the cream color, and that's okay. It's not covering up the pictures that I wanted to use. Again, you have to make sure you dry, completely dry. Then you can either dry brush, which I'm going to do in a minute, or you can just kind of do like I'm doing here. Um, we're just blending colors at this point to get a certain color that I want. Your color is not going to be exactly like mine. You're going to kind of go with the flow. I'm making like a ground, you know, uh, and you're going to have bumps because of the paper. And that's really what makes it really cool, the texture of it. You're not covering the whole thing with the black. I mean the brown. So you want some of that cream color to peek through. So it's not a full, let's paint the whole thing on, unless you want to. Totally up to you, I guess. Then I'm gonna grab some black, and I'm putting just a little bit on my fingertip, and I'm just going in certain places, and then I'm rubbing it off. So you're not really seeing a lot of it, and just kind of blending it all together. Just a little bit more. Wiping off in areas with your baby wipes. So you're gonna need quite a few baby wipes for this part of it. Not only for that, but to wipe your hands. So my thinking is like dirt. I really didn't want to go with grass. I was thinking more like dirt. And then grabbing some white paint on my plate because I am going to dry brush. And when you dry brush, you just want a little bit of paint on your brush, like barely nothing, so that you can just kind of brush over and highlight. It's more of a highlighting. So you'll see that just in certain areas. Hopefully you can see it. Yeah, just giving it texture, coming up into the page. I'm going to be adding more white because I want heavier white in areas, trying not to cover up my pictures. But now's the time. So I'm pretty sure I'm, for the most part, done with the bottom part. So I'm working on the top part. And I want some blues and whites and grays in there. But to start, um, the layer of the top part, even adding a little bit of the cream color, just a little bit to the top part. Okay, just making sure at this point everything is completely dry. Then I'm going to grab the stencil that I want and the modeling paste and my I don't know why I forget the name of this, that tool there. Palette knife. I don't know why that word just escapes my brain every time. So you can use it two different ways. You can use it by just using it the color that it is, the white, or you can add different colors to your modeling paste depending on what you're doing. So I'm just showing you the technique. In this particular project, I probably didn't have to do it, but I wanted to show you. You just need a little bit, and you're just going to take your palette knife. I'm going to say it 5 million times so I remember. And you're going to go ahead and mix it in, making sure there's a nice mix. So this particular modeling paste, for some reason, is thin. They have thicker modeling paste. I don't particularly like this brand for what I'm doing here because if you're not careful, you're going to see what happens here. You're going to see that splotchiness there. That's because it was too wet and it got underneath my stencil. So you have to be careful when you're doing it. And you don't need a lot, you just a little bit to spread it over the stencil. See, that one's better. And I'm just doing it in my upper part. I'm not doing it over my ground coverage area. I'm just doing maybe 3 different areas, moving my stencil around, using a little bit of the paste, and then um, spreading it. So there, that's definitely better. You do want to wash off your stencil right away. You don't want it to dry on your stencil. It could mess it up. And also your palette knife. You want to make sure that they're cleaned up too. You can use a baby wipe to just wipe it off until you get to the sink. if you're in the middle. But you do have to be careful because depending on your stencil, sometimes if you rub too hard, it can mess up your stencil. So once your paste is dried completely, then we're gonna step into doing some painting. And I'm just grabbing a little bit of the blue and putting it around in different areas. Then a little bit more of the cream. So in the areas that um, you want to kind of go in spots around and blend it together. And the certain areas that you want your image to peek through, obviously you're not going to put paint. And that's kind of like the whole cool thing about it is you'll be like, wait, what is that little texture there? Or what is that little thing there? So this is another part of mixed media that you can't think about. You just kind of got to relax into it and focus more on the word. Focus more on your time with the Lord. He'll guide you. I am covering up my wording or my stenciling that I did, and that's fine because I knew I was going to do that. So I'm just taking the white, the cream, and the blue and just kind of blending together so it kind of looks like the background of the sky. A little bit of gray. There is no real rhyme or reason to this. You just kind of got to let it go. Let it go. This is when you put worship music on. That's what you need, some worship music, and then let your inner artist come out and have some fun until you get to a point where you're satisfied. It's like, "Oh, okay, that looks good." Remember, you can always add more later. When we are adding the printables to the page, so some of this is going to get covered up. So my whole thinking is kind of have a bluish sky, and I am going to put some clouds in there. Um, they're not going to be, you can't really like, they're not going to stand out a lot, but you'll see them in there in the final project of it. So I'm just kind of taking my white paint and just very loosely deciding where I want some clouds to be. And at this point, um, you kind of want to start thinking about drying it. So after you get the first layer of where you want the background to be, you want to go ahead and dry it on up. It's important, remember, to dry layers. So you just want to blend the colors and kind of just maybe even look at the sky when it's got a little bit of cloud coverage. Or kind of, think about that, like imagine that. And again, dry it up. And I'm going to add another layer of white to my clouds because I want them to stick out. And then I'm going to outline it. I'm going to dip the edge of my brush in some gray to kind of outline my clouds and then blend it together. I actually pounce a little bit too, kind of just because I want everything to blend for my clouds. So you'll see that. Just be a cloud, be a happy little cloud, and have fun. It reminds me of that guy. I don't remember his name. Happy Trees, is it or something? All right, once it's completely dry, we are going to add our printables. And I'm not using a lot of printables on this particular page. Um, I'm only using a few, and I really like the way it comes out. Um, the cool thing is you can go ahead and use the printables on a different page for a different verse, or if you want to do this verse in another, in a mixed media book, or maybe with some study notes. So I'm basically using the one barn with the very big tree and then some goats and the fruit, because we're talking about God always provide the fruit, the vegetables. I guess it's fruit and vegetables. We're talking about God always provides for us. And isn't it true? Like when it's hard to see it as we're going through the situation, but God will provide if we have faith and we're obedient. I feel that He always shows up, always shows up. I've heard some really cool stories, and maybe you have too, about people who needed a electric payment or something, and then all of a sudden it shows up in the mail. I mean, of course, we do that in community, and God provides through our community, I believe. So He helps us provide for each other also. Meaning, He'll give us a little bit of a nudge to say, why don't you give that person this, or why don't you call that person? And then it's like when have you ever had that aha moment when it's like, oh, I needed that at this moment. I needed to hear that at this moment, or I needed to see that scripture. I know when I post sometimes, people say, "Yeah, I needed to hear that right now," and even I do it. There's times when I'm like, "Oh, spot on, Lord. Thank you for showing it." And some people say they have a hard time hearing God. God will speak to us in different ways. He speaks to us visually, I think by um, people, circumstances, he'll talk to us. It's not like an audible voice that we hear. It'll be a feeling, or sometimes I guess it could be an audible voice that somebody may hear. But you just don't know. And just keep listening and just being aware of what's around you and what's going on. And you'll start to recognize that has to be God, because where else would it come from? And that's how I learned how to hear and discern his voice. So, but thinking about how he always provides, what do we honestly need that he can't get, that he doesn't give us? Do we need a bunch of material things? No. A roof over our head, food in our bellies, right? So I'm going to grab this big wording here. These are actually called word fetty. That's, I've heard them before. And I was just gonna say something. What was I gonna say? I forgot what I was gonna say. Oh, I'm using the printables that I'm using are actually, I think, intended for the not Inspire, Illustrated Bible, because they're the bigger pictures that can fit on the bigger margins, but also for the interleaved where you want um bigger graphics. And then for the smaller ones, the Bible margin one, it's the smaller ones, and then she gives you the faith decks, which you can do that. So this is, it's just so worth it, because you can do so many different things with this. You can even make a card for somebody and send it out with the verse, which, you know what? I think I might do that today. I think I'll do that when I'm done here, and make a card and pray, and then see who God puts on my heart that would need this card. So once I finish gluing, I'm going to be grabbing my stabilo. Now the stabilo, I really need to look it up, because I'm not exactly sure what it's made of, but it's like a colored pencil. And it says here paper, glass, plastic, and metal. And um it's just a really cool pencil that you can use, and it kind of, I want to say, grunges it up, or kind of blends. It's like a blending pencil. I don't know. I have to look into it a little bit more. But I like it because if you see here, now if you like this look when without having any of the blending, then you would stop here. But the Stabilo, if you go out on the outsides of the image, you can just kind of put like an outline around it. And I just feel like it kind of um, blends everything together. So I'm just outlining everything with it. Different ways that you can blend. You can blend with your finger like I'm using here. Depending on how much of the stabilo you put on there will give you the light or dark effect. You can use a baby wipe, and then you can use a paintbrush because it reacts or activates when you add water to it. So there's different ways that you can use this, and you might want to just try it on a separate piece of paper so that you can see the effect that you want. Sometimes I do it so light, and I realize I actually do want it a little darker, and I'm just blending the whole page with it. And you'll just add as much or as little as you want. So again, these are the printables for Psalms 104, 14 through 15, and they are available in your Momentum kit. If you're not part of Momentum and you'd like to look into it a little bit more, go to BibleJournalingMinistries.com and check that out. Also, you can purchase it separately, this kit, in the office, in the store. So yeah, I'm really satisfied with the look of it. It's not a lot, and simple is good sometimes. It's I'm going to show you kind of like all the cool texture here. You see my little bird is sticking out, and like just look at all the fun, like I don't know, it's just really cool. So I hope that you'll give this a try. I hope that you will take a picture and show us because we love to see your artwork, and it inspires me to see that what you do with it. So I want to say thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.